Hey, Ava Raposa here, and I'm recording this 18 years to the day since I went raw vegan in 2007. And I've got to tell you, it's been quite a journey. I've learned a few things the hard way, and some things have been a little easier, but let's go ahead and dive in to the lesson. So we'll start out with ease and planning. So these lessons are all about letting it be easy and planning ahead. So the first one, yes, plan ahead. Raw food can feel just like fast food if you plan ahead. So, for example, making a batch of crackers or a batch of pate or a batch of the things that you know you'll have a lot of. I always have pate, crackers, almond milk, and green smoothies. I'm trying to think of what else. These are the things that are most likely to have on hand, and they're just ready to go. And when I run out, I just make some more right away. And I think ahead about it. So this makes it just really, really easy because those little things make all the difference. And related, you want to have your favorite ingredients on hand. So you start to get to know which ones are the most important. So say almonds for almond milk, or having some kind of other nut, or even just almonds. If I have just almonds, it's good to make a pate, or sunflower seeds, having green leaves on hands to make green smoothies. So whatever those things are that are really important, just get into that groove and let it be an easy habit to make sure those items are on hand. And also, just thinking on this, you can alternate between similar ingredients too. So maybe you buy a big bag of walnuts, and sometimes you buy a big bag of pecans, and sometimes you buy other different things so that you can kind of alternate and switch between so that you're not having the same thing all the time if you have limited pantry space, for example. All right. So, related to that, it's good to be willing to swap ingredients. A lot of raw food recipes on the internet and in cookbooks, or uncooked books, they are a little bit fancier than they need to be. Sometimes we'll have three different types of nuts when one nut would do, and it doesn't even have to be those. And, for example, I make a really, really good pumpkin pesto. And the reason I started using pumpkin seeds in the beginning is simply because I was looking for an alternative to a pine nut pesto. I had pumpkin seeds on hand. I said, let's see how it goes. With the basil, with the parsley, with fresh herbs, it already is going to be green anyway. So using the pumpkin seeds, as it turns out, is actually amazing, and it's much less expensive than getting pine nuts. And also, I just find it to be really easy to digest seeds in general. So sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, things like this are actually quite lovely in terms of how easily they digest, but how satiating they can be. So anyways, I guess what I'm saying is the fancy and harder to find ingredients can often be optional. So be willing to look at the recipe and say, I can swap this for that. All right. Three, let it be easy. So when you make in batches and freeze and buy things pre-made at times, this can make a huge difference. So just as an example, there's a cafe in Beverly, Massachusetts called Organic Garden Cafe. Now, I don't know if they still sell frozen pizzas, but they actually used to sell frozen pizza crust that were raw. And so what would happen is the hardest part of making a pizza is making the crust. It's easy to zip up a marinara, easy to add on the ingredients that you put as your toppings, but making the crust requires a little bit more complication in terms of dehydration time and getting the recipe just right. Now, it's easy for me at this point because I've made so many of them, but I can see how this would just be an amazing support. So they're relatively inexpensive because the crust has inexpensive ingredients. So something like that, or if you don't have a dehydrator or don't have the time to dehydrate and you buy crackers sometimes, then, if these things make it easy, then let it be easy. But any way that you can let it be easy, I just feel like that makes the difference so much in terms of being able to continue, let it be sustainable. If you let it be easy, you let it be sustainable. All right, wellness and flexibility. So you want to know what's non-negotiable for you. So let's just say, for example, raw vegan is important for you to be perfectly vegan. So you know that if it's an animal product, it's not an option. Perhaps you eat a lot of raw foods, but you would like to have sometimes a pizza that may or may not be raw and it has gluten. And for you, that's okay. I mean, I don't know what your situation is, but I know for me, I have certain non-negotiables, but also they can change season by season. And so for some years, I ate 100% raw 100% of the time. For some years, I've experimented with this and that. Well, what happens when I add this? What happens when I add that? And what I find is that my own magic formula at this point in time is to eat very high raw, so almost 100% raw, but to allow there to be some wiggle room. So if I eat something that's cooked, it's not really a big deal, but I still won't eat, different products like meat or gluten or dairy. They're just not for me right now. Now, do I know for sure what's going to happen for the next 20, 30, 50 years, however long I'm alive? No, I don't. And so I think it's really important to just know right now in this season what's non-negotiable, because when you know what's on the table or not on the table, it makes it a lot easier. And this, by the way, it's really important for this to be a really lovely journey and to not be like an obsessive thing, like I can't have this, I can't have that. I mean, just for me, I know which foods I can have that wiggle room, and which foods I'll probably pay for it. I've already tested this out and I came into it with an open mind, but it just didn't work. And so I know that those foods aren't for me, because there's literally no food out there that tastes as good as health feels. It's true. All right. Except two words, green smoothies. So there's a gal named Lucy Brandt, and on this raw food forum that I used to go to back in around 2007 to 2010 or so, when it was still online, it was called Raw Food Talk. I learned so much about raw food. This is the place I heard about raw food first, and I loved connecting with friends on there. We shared amongst each other, asked and answered questions galore, and anything that you couldn't figure out about the world of raw food, someone was there. But so Lucy, she was such a fanatic about green smoothies. And so anytime someone was having some sort of health issue that they had come to Raw to get rid of, and it was a niggling health issue and they hadn't quite gotten rid of it yet, or they were having some kind of challenge, she would always say, green smoothies, two words, green smoothies. Exactly what the quote was, two words, colon, green smoothies. Because she felt like green smoothies were such a good magical cure to anything. So because of her being there, her presence and her continuous reminder about green smoothies, I got into green smoothies really quickly. And I've got to say, I've been just about as obsessed with green smoothies as Lucy, Vegan for Life, for this whole time, because I do find that just having a lot of green smoothies, it's really easy. It's easy to, I mean, right now, at this very moment in my fridge, I have 2 liters of green smoothies. It's because we drank some already, but it's just I make 2 to 4 liters on a lighter day, and on a heavier day, I'll make 4 to 6 liters. Just blend them up, have them ready to go, drink some of them. Our family, it's not just me who's obsessed with green smoothies at this point, so I'm not the only one drinking it. I just love to have them ready. So the amazing thing about green smoothies is that it's a whole food. So there's no, like with olive oil is not a whole food. It's not, I'm not demonizing it by any means, but it's not a whole food. It's not eating lots of olives. It's just the oil. Juice, it's just the juice. You take out the fiber. Whereas green smoothies, it's a whole food. So it's just naturally in balance. It's naturally in harmony. And it just makes it really easy for your body to digest. And you're getting lots of greens in, getting enough calories, but it's so easy to digest that it works. All right. So continuing forward, be a scientist, not a judge. Oh, this is a favorite one because, all right, I've found that this on the wagon, off the wagon kind of thing, which is something that if you haven't heard this before, it's this expression that people say when they're going on a diet. And I don't see raw food as a diet, by the way. It's just a way of eating. But so if you are going on a diet because you've decided, okay, I've got 21 days to lose weight, or I'm doing this for 21 days, or, I'm going on a diet, and then one day you eat something that doesn't fit in with your diet, then there's this idea of going off the wagon. I just don't resonate with that anymore. And so it's easy to judge yourself or to judge the situation. And this can be one of the most challenging situations when you're trying on a new lifestyle. And so this idea of being the scientist is just like, it's just an experiment, from day to day. I see how this is working. I see how that's working. And I just let one day be taken at a time and enjoy the journey. And as a scientist, I have my hypothesis based on what I think is going to work. And based on that, I say, okay, this is what I'm going to eat regularly based on what I expect will probably be the case. But as a scientist, you also have to be open to the possibility that just because you think something is going to be a certain way doesn't mean that it will be. And so we don't want to end up with the placebo effect or the nocebo effect, which is where, if you have something that could harm you and then it does harm you because you're so obsessed with the fact that it's going to harm you. So being a scientist just means showing up as somebody who's like, doing the detective work and having an open mind to how things are going to be and just taking it from day to day rather than being ready to judge yourself and crack the whip and all of that. All right. Enough food. All right. So I feel like a lot of people who think they're craving certain foods are craving those foods. Say somebody says, I'm craving meat. very well they could be craving meat. That is very possible. But sometimes it's just that our body is so smart and it knows that calorie dense foods have a lot of calories. If you're not eating enough food, your body's going to say, I need a lot of food. And so it's going to be thinking about those things that are calorie dense. And so it's just better not to be in this situation. And especially in the early times, there was a time period when I just found it really hard to feel satisfied enough because I wasn't eating enough food. And then eventually I got into the habit of just eating enough food. And it's harder to know with the calories. Say you have a giant salad and you don't have olive oil on it. Well, it's going to have like, I don't know, maybe 50 calories. So it's not a complete meal. So you have to look at the ways that you can increase the calories from meal to meal to make sure that you're getting enough food, enough calories. All right, transition gently. So when I first went raw, I went overnight cold turkey. I got rid of everything that I had been eating that wasn't raw. And this for me was actually really challenging because I went through a detox hell of sorts. It was insane. I had vertigo. I had a crazy headache. I was it was insane. It was a really hard time. And so you don't want to be in a position probably where you can't work or you're, taxing your organs or it feels hard, but also I want to share this idea that yes, detox is real, but it's not just the physical detox, there's also the emotional detox. So sometimes as we're cleansing, we can get, really cranky. When people get off of sugar, that can be a time when there's like a lot of crankiness happens. Same thing if you get off of caffeine. And so we want to just be gentle with ourselves and allow that space to be there for us to recover, to heal as we clean out the things that may have been harming us over the years. All right, food quality. So good to know your farmers, be as close to our food as we eat as possible, and even grow some of it. And growing some of it doesn't mean you have to, have a farm or be a homesteader. You can sprout veggies. You can have little herbs. You can have pots of herbs. There's so many things that you can do that just make it really easy. And sprouting, by the way, is so easy. So these little things, if you have a yard, if you have the space outside and you're able to do that, then of course do even more if you can and want to. But I'm just saying that whatever we can do to be as close to the food as possible, it really makes a difference in terms of our relationship with the food and being able to get the best quality available and the freshest food, all of that. Okay, mind the dirty dozen. So if you don't have the ability or the budget or whatever the situation is to eat 100% organic foods, no worries. Just, I would say, mind the dirty dozen. So be aware of, and this is a concept that basically there are the 12 highest sprayed pesticide crops every single year. And it does actually vary, although there are some that are consistent from year to year, like apples. Apples tend to be like just a thing that you want to eat organic when possible. But so it's also good to think of the mix of quality dynamics. So just for example, I'm in Brazil right now. And when I'm in Brazil, it's really hard to get perfectly organic foods. And in order to get them, I have to go to the big city. And when I go to that city, these foods have been shipped from further away. They're not as fresh. And so the quality is actually lower than what I can get from my local farmers at the farmers market. But I know my farmers really well. So there are particular farmers that I just love going to buy their food. So Amelia, for example, she's from Pilar do Sul and she is just lovely. And she doesn't use pesticides on her food. So it's not perfectly organic because I'm sure her seeds aren't organic, but she's very gentle and her food is just so good. So I love buying produce from her in particular. And, when I'm in Massachusetts in the USA, I have the same kind of situation where I know exactly which farms I can go to that are going to be the least expensive but have the highest quality. So there's one that's not certified organic, but I know that it's organic and I know the farmers and it's just a lovely place. So, all right, moving on. Travel and eating out. Bring great food. So, when possible, if you're going to a party, bring some great food. Of course, make sure this is okay ahead of time. Of course, see what's going to be served, and maybe what'll be served is going to be perfectly fine. You don't even need to do that based on what your non negotiables are and what's going to be available. But when you can just clear it with the person who's having the get together, or if there's a potluck and you bring something that's, like say if you bring guacamole and crackers. Well, guacamole and crackers or sliced veggies, something like this, veggie rounds, that is like normal food. Normal people would eat that food. You don't have to be raw vegan or have adjusted your lifestyle into specific ways in order to enjoy a really good guacamole. So, this can be a fun way to make it pleasant to go to a party. And then, yeah, by the way, related to that though, it's just food. right? So food can just be food. It doesn't have to entertain us. Sometimes it can be simple. So if what's available is simple, then let it be simple. For example, sometimes when I'm traveling, I will literally, for a good chunk of the day, just have fruit. I stick it in my bag, I go to wherever I go, and I just have fruit because I don't need it to entertain me for every meal. Just having the food, making sure that I have enough food in my belly so that I'm satisfied and able to have the energy to flow and enjoy the adventure that I'm on, that's enough. Okay, scout ahead. So, especially if you're traveling, it's really fun to look for raw or vegan hotspots, farmers markets, supermarkets. And this way, like if you think about it, so for example, in Budapest, there's this place called the Vasár Csarnok. It's this big market hall, and it is such a fun adventure to go there. So it's more interesting than a supermarket. So knowing ahead of time which amazing farmers markets might be happening or where you might find a cool little farm market, that is so much easier than just like landing wherever and then getting stuck in a situation where you don't know where the good food is. And think about it. If you're letting it be easy, then some of your meals can just be simple meals, where you just have the simple foods like fruits or chop up a salad or just let it be simple. Or even nuts, have a snack of nuts. All right, real world relationships. This is actually a favorite part because this is one of the biggest challenges I think we have completely outside of the food. When we eat a lot of raw foods or when we stop eating certain foods that our loved ones eat or that people out in the world eat, it's challenging. So we set the tone. I want to say this because let's just say somebody asks you, "Oh, you don't eat that?" And then you're like, "Well, no, I don't eat that food because it's very bad for you." Make a big deal out of how like their foods are harmful foods and whatever. It's really not a good situation. And also, if you make a big deal out of something, then other people are likely to make a big deal out of something. So when you just set the tone and if I'm asked, I always like to start with a non-judgmental way. So if somebody asks me why I don't eat a certain food or they offer me a food and I say no thank you, then if there's a situation where I can have the conversation, then sometimes I'll tell a story about how when I first went raw at the time, I had been eating a lot more of my husband's food. He loves to cook, and those foods weren't working out for me. I didn't know that I didn't do well with gluten or that I didn't do well with a lot of cheese because I didn't grow up eating a lot of the kinds of foods that he ate. And so I had particular challenges in the first year and a half of our marriage because I was eating his food, which it should have been a good thing to be eating his food. But so then I was very gassy and I had ulcers and I just had so many different challenges. And so he had to do this thing to me where he would like pump my knees into my chest to help me get gas out that was trapped. And I was in a lot of pain. And so for me, I was just looking for a solution for that on the internet. And then when I found out that I could just try to eat uncooked foods and to, do the raw food thing and see if that might work, I said, oh, okay, I'll try it. And then it worked. And so I just tell them that, I've tried this and it's better for everybody involved if I stick to the foods that I know work for me. And, because I've just talked about how I get gassy if I eat those other foods, it's kind of like saying like, you don't want me to fart all around everybody. And I just, I'm a little bit self-deprecating about it and I give a laugh and it just completely breaks the ice and takes the pressure off for me to be like, well, this was healthier. It's my personal experience. My personal unique situation was XYZ. I went raw to help me and then I found out that it worked out well for me and I've tried since then and this is just what works. All right, moving along. So it's part of who I am. So I went through a phase of my life where everything I did was about raw food. I had a raw food business and I was going to raw food raw looks, potlucks. I was, all of my friends were into raw foods with a few exceptions of like people who are like, been around my life for a long time or family members that, they don't, you don't swap your family members when you swap your eating habits. But so I found that doing this really put a lot of pressure on me, but also just, I don't want food to be my identity. I just want to show up and enjoy the moments and enjoy what one day is to another. And I found that it was exhausting after a while. So letting it be part of who I am, but not my whole identity, just feels a lot healthier. All right, shower appreciation on those. So be grateful for loved ones who make an effort on my behalf. So my husband, he will often zip up green smoothies for me. He will often make salads for us. Today, for example, he made lunch and he made some things that were for him and not for me. And then he also made a big, beautiful salad. I had already made green smoothies, so I didn't need to do that. But if I don't have green smoothies on hand, and which isn't that common, but when I don't, if he knows that I've just been very busy, he will just zip up green smoothies so that I have them ready. And he just, even if he's not going to be drinking them, which he often is, but not always, and sometimes literally just makes it for me. And so I just feel like being super grateful of that. And I also have today, as I'm making this, we're going to go to a get together at my sister-in-law Claudia's house. And she is so lovely. The number of family get togethers that she has prepared food or purchased food specifically thinking of me and said, don't worry, Eva, it doesn't have this, doesn't have that. And she just makes sure that it's just right. So she often has guacamole ready to go that she has somebody who makes that for her, or she makes it herself, depending on the situation. But it's just so lovely. And so I try to be grateful for that, to make a point of making sure that she knows how much I appreciate it, because I know it's been 18 years that I'm eating this way. So of course it's not like a new thing, but the fact that literally all of my family and friends at this point know that this is the way that I eat, and they make efforts if they're having a get together. This is like, it's really sweet. And so when it happens, I appreciate. Oh, and my stepson's wife, so I guess she would be my stepdaughter-in-law. Gosh, she feels so much closer. That feels like a complicated description for her. One year there was a birthday party and she made vegan desserts that to duplicate. So she made a whole bunch of not vegan desserts, right, for other family. And then she made the same desserts and she figured out how to make them vegan. Now they weren't perfectly raw, but they didn't have ingredients that that are so bad. There was, some sugar. And so I just, I went with it. I was grateful. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I would make in my kitchen, but my gosh, how sweet is that? It was so thoughtful. And they were delicious. So there's that. All right, what's next? 17, dogma free. So don't let healthy eating become my religion. So I know we kind of talked about this already, but I just feel like there is this tendency sometimes, because raw food is so transformative, because you change your diet and then all of a sudden your whole life changes and you feel better and it just feels amazing. But we don't have to spread the gospel of raw to every single person, like it's going to save their lives and this is the one and only way to eat. And you know for me too, like I have to eat this way, this is my religion. It can't, it's not healthy. I found that it's not healthy. And so I try very specifically with the uncooking stuff to not be really like bad mouthing cooked foods in the way that I actually did a little bit early on, very early on in the journey. But in recent years, I'm just here to share great recipes and to hopefully inspire friends who want to go on this path or want to continue on this path. But I don't feel like this is the one right way to eat and that everybody needs to eat this way and this is the one option for our body. I just don't feel that way anymore. I don't find it would be healthy for me to live my whole life feeling like I'm the only one who's doing the right thing of all the people that I know on a regular basis, and everybody else is doing the wrong thing, and they're like they need to be saved. It's no good. So speaking of that, we all get a path, and so it's good to remember that everyone has their own path. And this, for me, with my marriage to a husband who has tried raw food, and he actually did it for 40 days straight, which is amazing. And he lost a bunch of weight, and he was down to his perfect weight, and he had a ton of energy, and he loved it. But he said he was hungry, and his family eats what his family eats. And in the end, he didn't want to stick to raw food all the time. He didn't want to make that his lifestyle. And so I have to know that with the 8 billion or however many people there are on this planet, that we all have different paths. And this isn't the only one good path. We all get to choose. And so I can plant seeds, I can share lovely stuff in a way that is thoughtful, that, we all get our own path. But I choose mine, you choose yours, like we all get our own path. So this is it. These are my 18 lessons amongst many. I mean, there are a lot more. And, sometimes I found myself saying you or what have you in this, but these are really my lessons. So take what you want from it. And honestly, anything that doesn't resonate for you, like if you want to do 100%, if this does feel like it's your religion and this is the one right way, then, uh, this whole, like, we all get a path. It's the same thing in terms of the way that we address food and lifestyle and our own choices. So of course you choose your path. So my hope is that there is some value in this for you, that you can see that, I've been doing this for 18 years, and while I don't eat 100% raw 100% of the time, I eat high raw all the time. And in 18 years, I'm not taking medication like I did multiple times a day before. I'm not dealing with the health issues that I did before. I have energy. I'm feeling good. It doesn't mean I'm superwoman and nothing can happen to me. I actually did get Lyme disease for a period of time where I got bitten by an infected tick, and then it was a little bit of a nightmare. But I got through it, and now I'm back to 100% again. So, I'm not fail proof here, but the usual aches and pains and headaches and issues that a lot of people have, and that I used to have a lot of, I'm, coasting through my 40s, and I'm still not dealing with those things. And I'm really grateful for that. So my hope is that something in here is useful to you if you want to be on this lifestyle, on this path, in a way that can work for the long term, can be sustainable, and without feeling like it takes over your life in a negative way. So that's my hope in sharing this with you. And that's it. Cheers. Bye.